if your survival or your child's life hinged entirely on a plant growing in the dirt? Most people don't know that for early settlers, this wasn't a scary what if. It was raw, daily reality. Imagine facing sickness, injury, or starvation with no hospitals, no ready medicine, just the wilderness. They uncovered nature's most vital secrets just to stay alive, secrets that saved entire families. Number 1. Echinacea. You've probably seen this plant before, even if you don't recognize the name. It's that beautiful, tough-looking flower with the droopy purple petals and a spiky, cone-shaped center. You might know it as the purple coneflower. But for early settlers, this wasn't just something pretty to look at. This was their first real antibiotic, long before we had modern medicine. Number 2. Yarrow. When you're dealing with an injury out in the wild, the first and most important rule is to stop the bleeding. A deep gash from an axe or a hunting knife could turn deadly in minutes, and a simple bandage just wasn't going to cut it. This is where yarrow became one of the most important plants a settler could know. For thousands of years, this plant was known as the battlefield herb. Roman soldiers supposedly carried it with them, and it earned nicknames like soldier's woundwort and herba militaris. That knowledge was passed down, and for pioneers, it was their emergency field dressing. Number 3. Chamomile. Yarrow was for the big, violent emergencies. But the daily grind of settler life brought its own kind of pain. The invisible kind. The constant worry, the gnawing anxiety, and the sheer exhaustion that settled deep in your bones. For that, they had chamomile. You probably know this one. We still drink it today to relax. But for settlers, it was a vital piece of their mental and physical first aid kit. Life was incredibly stressful, and there were no therapists or prescription meds. There was just this tiny, daisy-like flower. Number 4. Peppermint. When a sickness settled in the chest and made breathing a chore, settlers needed something sharp, powerful, and fast. And nothing on the frontier cut through congestion quite like the cool, intense blast of peppermint. This wasn't some gentle, calming flower like chamomile. Peppermint was a workhorse. It was brought over from Europe and planted in nearly every settler's garden because it was tough. It grew like a weed, and its uses were almost endless. Number 5. Comfrey. When a bone snapped or a joint twisted, there was no emergency room, no x-ray, and no cast. There was just you, the injury, and the hope that it would heal straight. For that kind of deep structural damage, settlers had a plant so famous for its job, they nicknamed it knitbone. This wasn't a plant you made into a tea. In fact, they knew it was dangerous to eat. Comfrey was the settlers' external repair kit, their all-natural cast. The real power was in its thick, black root. They'd dig it up, pound it into a slimy pulp, and plaster this thick, dark paste directly onto a broken limb, a severe sprain, or a deep, painful bruise. Then they'd wrap it tightly and let the plant get to work. Number 6. Calendula. With food often scarce, settlers learned to use every part of a plant they could. And the cheerful, bright orange petals of the calendula flower sometimes found their way into stews and broths, adding a splash of color and nutrition to a meager meal. It was a small way to fight back against the constant threat of a poor diet. But its real power wasn't as food. Its true purpose was for the skin. In a world without sterile bandages or antibiotic creams, the smallest cut, burn, or scrape was a serious risk. A minor wound from a splintered piece of wood or a hot cooking pot could easily get infected, and an infection could be a death sentence. Number 7. Sage. When it came to fighting an enemy you couldn't see, settlers reached for one of the most potent and aromatic herbs they had. Sage wasn't a gentle soother, it was a powerful cleanser, and they believed it could scrub the body clean from the inside out. Its first and most common use was for the throat. In a drafty cabin during a long winter, sore throats and hacking coughs were a constant misery. To fight back, they'd simply steep a few sage leaves in hot water. The warm, earthy tea had a unique quality that seemed to numb a raw, scratchy throat almost on contact. They would sip it slowly to calm a cough, or let it cool and use it as a gargle to wash away the sickness. Its sharp, clean scent alone felt like medicine. Number 8. Garlic. When a tooth started to throb with a deep, searing pain, there was no dentist to call. There was only the infection and the agony that came with it. For this kind of intense, localized misery, settlers turned to a plant that was as aggressive as the infection itself. Garlic wasn't just for seasoning food. It was one of the most powerful medicines they had. Long before anyone knew what bacteria were, settlers understood that this pungent little bulb could stop an infection dead in its tracks. They didn't have antibiotics. They had garlic. For that raging toothache, they would take a single clove, crush it to release its potent oils, and pack it right against the infected gum. The burn was intense, but they believed it was a sign the garlic was working, fighting the infection at its source and numbing the excruciating pain. Garlic was their weapon against invading bacteria. But what did they do when the enemy wasn't an invader, but the body itself turning on them? For the strange, invisible pains that shot through the nerves or the overwhelming anxiety that could paralyze the mind, they needed a plant that worked on a much deeper, more mysterious level. Number 9. Elderberry. When a winter sickness struck, it wasn't like a clean cut or a broken bone. It was an internal war. The enemy was an invisible force that turned your own body against you, with raging fevers, shaking chills, and aches that settled deep into your bones. It was the kind of illness that could sweep through a household and leave everyone too weak to even fetch water. For this fight, settlers relied on the small, dark purple fruit of the elderberry bush. This was their version of a flu shot and a fever reducer, all in one. As summer turned to fall, families would harvest basketfuls of these berries. They knew they couldn't be eaten raw. The uncooked berries, leaves, and stems could make a person terribly sick. This was knowledge passed down through generations. The berries had to be cooked. Number 10. Horehound. After covering plants for fevers, infections, and life-threatening wounds, you might be wondering, what could possibly be the king of the pioneer forest? It wasn't a plant for dramatic life-or-death moments. Its power was much more common, and in a way, much more important. It was the ultimate weapon against the one problem that could wear a person down day after day, week after week. A deep, rattling cough that just wouldn't go away. In a time without medicine, a simple chest cold could be a serious threat. A persistent cough meant you couldn't sleep, you couldn't work, which was often a death sentence.